As you might be able to tell, I love Fenty Gloss Bombs. What's crazy is that more shades than these actually exist, but I do have a lot of them, so let's go ahead and get into swatches. In my opinion, Fenty has one of the best gloss formulas that's on the market, and I really do love how often they introduce new shades and new formulas into the mix. Given how inclusive the brand is, it's an easy one for me to support. And also, as being someone who's into really interesting shades of lip gloss, I love that we've seen some more adventurous shades, especially within the last couple of years. My only wish is that some of those shades weren't limited edition. You know I'm looking directly at you, Kaboom and Major Flex. I'm going to start off by swatching all of the Universal Luminizers, starting with the shade Diamond Milk. And at the time that I'm making this video, this shade actually is not available. I could foresee this one coming back and becoming permanent. Basically, it's a clear gloss with sheer diamond-like sparkle throughout. Next, we have the shade Hologram. This was a limited edition gloss from 1.5 years ago. It was the winter of 2023. I think this might be the first chrome gloss that Fenty's ever done. Definitely a super unique shade and one that I wish was still around. I hope they come back with some more chrome shades in the future as well. Okay, I swear we do have some permanent shades in here, but the next one is also limited edition. This is called Champ Stamp Fantasy, and I like to think about this as a sparkly, sort of fizzy peach shade. In general, the shades labeled as fantasy from Fenty tend to be some of their sparkliest. Next, we have the shade Fussy, which has really remained a cult classic since the time that it's come out. I would describe this as a mid-toned mauve shade that has sort of silver-leaning sparkles throughout. Next, we have the shade Riri. This is one of my own personal favorites. This is sort of a deeper mauve shade with magenta sparkles throughout. It's my perfect day-to-day nude gloss bomb. Next, we have the shade Fussy Flex, and this is a mixture of Fussy and Fuchsia Flex, and this was the holiday shade for this past winter. I do really like the shade that it came out to be, and I hope to see more sort of mixed shades in the future. In the end, it wasn't a super unique shade, but it was fun. And next we have Hot Chocolate Fantasy. This is also another favorite of mine. It's that fantasy type of shade that's extra sparkly. It gives the vibes of cherry cola lips. It almost has like a brownie red type of base and beautiful fuchsia sparkles throughout. Okay, so I don't know if y'all remember the lore behind Fuchsia Flex, but basically this was a limited edition shade that was only available in a holiday kit many years ago. And people were begging for this shade to be brought back, and finally Fenty did, and I do think it's part of the permanent lineup. And I do like to see a shade that's as vibrant as Fuchsia Flex as being permanent. Some of the other permanent shades just feel safer and not quite as exciting as some of the limited edition shades. Okay, so for my fellow friends that love gray and black glosses, this one hurts. This is Major Flex. It's one of the limited edition shades that came out last year. It was in and out of stock pretty quickly. It's a beautiful gunmetal gray and it has multicolored sparkles throughout. So many people have asked for this shade that I do think there's a possibility of it coming back, but I can't say for sure. And this is another one that's gonna hurt. This is Fenty Kaboom. It was part of the Fenty Times Arcane collection. It was Fenty's version of a black gloss. And I did actually swatch and try this on in my black gloss video as well. It's a little bit deeper than Major Flex, and it also has multicolored sparkles throughout. I have actually heard rumblings that they're going to be restocking the collection, but at this point, it's just speculation. And here's what all of the shades of the Universal Gloss Bomb Luminizers look like swatched on my arm. Let's go ahead and dive into swatching some of the other categories that I have. Okay, now I'm going to swatch the Gloss Bomb oils, and thankfully only one of the shades that I'm going to show you isn't available anymore. We're going to start off with the shade Superfine Sugar, which is basically like a warm, milky toned shade that has golden sparkles throughout. In general, I do find this formula to be maybe ever so slightly more sheer, and because it's an oil, it is a little bit more liquidy in its texture. Next, we have the shade Frosted Buns, which basically has a medium tan base with multicolored sparkles throughout. And next, we have the shade Fenty Glow. This base shade is pretty similar to Frosted Buns, but it has sort of more greenish, goldy green, kind of grungy gold green sparkles throughout. I really love the shade and the way that the sparkles in it translate on the lips. Next we have the shade Kappa Cookie. This is actually not available anymore. It came out last summer and it has sort of a deep bronzy base and golden leading sparkles throughout. And next we have the shade Fussy. This shade is actually very similar to its equivalent in the Luminizer line. It even has the silver leaning sparkles in it, so I think if you're trying to choose between the two, I would go for the formula you prefer more. And next we have the shade Raspberry Jams. If you like the tone of gloss of Fuchsia Flex, I think you would get on well with this shade. Again, picking between the two is going to be a matter of which formula you prefer. Okay, and I had to save my favorite two for last. First we have Miss Jellyfish, which is a beautiful light purple, and it has light blue and light purple sparkles throughout. I love the fact that Fenty gave us purples this year. And then last but not least, we have the shade Rose Amber, which is a taupe base, and it has purple sparkles throughout. As many of you may know, I love a good cool tone gloss, especially one that's going to flatter a wide range of skin tones. And here's what all of those Gloss Bomb oils look like swatched on my arm in the order that I described them. Okay, now I'm going to get into swatching a few of my Gloss Bomb sticks in the non-shimmery version that came out last year, starting with Spiced Cold. This is the most opaque formula that Fenty carries in their Gloss Bomb line, so if that's appealing to you, I would definitely consider that when you are deciding which formula might be best for you. Spiced Cold is a really beautiful kind of light brown rose toned nude shade. This is a shade that's sold out multiple times, and I can see why, because I think it's one that really would work for a wide range of skin tones. Next we have the shade Riri, and in this formula I would describe this as a mid-tone mauve toned gloss. And now we have the shade Blacker Berry. I think that this might actually be my favorite shade in the line. It's sort of a brownish red toned shade. It has a good amount of depth, so I do think it's a particularly flattering nude on people with medium to deep skin tone. And then last but not least, we have the shade Hot Chocolate. Hot Chocolate is a shade that I think that I will always get no matter what formula Fenty comes out with. I do really love a brown tone nude, but for some reason in this formula, I think I prefer Blacker Berry just a little bit more because of its depth. And here's what those four shades look like swatched all together on my arm. Okay, and last but not least, I have to swatch the 6 Gloss Bomb Shimmer Sticks that came out earlier this year, starting with the shade Fenty Glow. This formula has been wildly popular, and something that I think people have really liked is the fact that the shimmer in this formula is a little bit more obvious. And it is going to last a little bit longer on the lips than their traditional gloss is. I'm not going to lie, my favorite formula is still the traditional Luminizer formula, but I do really like these. They're all sheer, so I do think they're going to work on a very wide variety of skin tones. And I personally do not find them to be gritty, but if you're very sensitive to texture, that might be something to keep in mind because I think you're going to feel it a little bit more than the traditional formula. And next we have the shade Flamingo Fling, which has a light cool tone pink base and multicolored sparkles throughout. And I said it before, but I'm going to mention it again, because the shades are sheer, they will flatter a wider variety of skin tones. And next we have the shade Fussy. I was happy to see this because it's such a fan favorite. This has a mauve tone base and has multicolored sparkles throughout. And next we have the shade See You in Maui, which was quite a different shade for Fenty. It has this sort of light orange coral leaning base, and it's got greenish gold leaning sparkles throughout. I really ended up liking the shade a lot more than I initially expected because I don't lean toward orange and coral leaning lip products. And now we have the shade Icy Amethyst. This is a beautiful light purple leaning base, and it has sort of lighter purple and bluish sparkles throughout. It's very similar to Miss Jellyfish. And then last but not least, we have Hot Chocolate. And what I find interesting about this version of Hot Chocolate is that it really is a cooler toned brown. The other versions of Hot Chocolate are quite a bit warmer in tone. So this gloss has that cooler tone brown base with multicolored sparkles throughout. And here's what all of the Gloss Bomb Shimmer Sticks look like swatched to my arm. Let's go ahead and get into trying on my favorite 7 shades that are currently in stock. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and try on some of my favorite shades, starting with Miss Jellyfish. When I told you I was happy to see Fenty made some purples this year, I meant it. We got 2 purple glosses and a Shadow Sticks Diamond in the shade Miss Prissy, which I did a video on those shimmer sticks if you haven't seen it yet. And I feel like this gloss would be a good introduction if you're just starting to dip your toes into more adventurous shades. And next we have the shade Riri, and on me, I do feel this is the perfect mauvey nude gloss. I love it so much, and hopefully because it has the name Riri, it means we're safe. They're not going to discontinue it. Just really my perfect day-to-day nude. And next we have the Fussy Gloss Bomb Oil that came out earlier this year. They actually didn't have the shade Riri in this line, or at least they don't as of yet, which is probably why I chose this shade. It's just another really good day-to-day nude shade on me. And next we have the shade Hot Chocolate. Of the Gloss Bomb Luminizers that are currently in stock, this and Riri are my top 2. And something I like about this shade above Riri is that because it's a fantasy formula, it's a little bit extra sparkly. That, and for me, Cherry Cola lips are always going to be a vibe. And next we have the shade Rose Amber. Rose Amber and Miss Jellyfish are my top 2 favorite shades from the Gloss Bomb Oil line that launched this year. I love how this shade is taupe and it has those beautiful purple sparkles throughout. I do hope they decide to bring a shade like this to the Universal Gloss Bomb Luminizer line as well. And now we have the shade Icy Amethyst in the Gloss Bomb Shimmer Stick. Of course I had to include it. I mean, it's purple. But now that you've seen Miss Jellyfish, hopefully you can see what I mean when I say that the sparkles in it are just a little bit more obvious and apparent. Both beautiful shades, just a little bit different. And then last but not least, we have the shade Hot Chocolate in that Gloss Bomb Shimmer Stick. This is a little bit cooler toned than the other versions of Hot Chocolate, as I had mentioned. And you can see that in my application on the lips. I really do love the depth in this particular shade and the multicolored sparkles. Alright y'all, that's the end of this video. I know it was a little bit of a longer one, but I really hope you found it helpful. Please let me know in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.